It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Yet, even as sunlight filtered through the antique stained glass windows of St. Helena's Chapel, Clara felt a strange unease she couldn't name. Something about the way the morning air pressed against the windows felt too still, too heavy. She dismissed it as nerves. This is a real-life story. You can as well check it out yourself. And if stories like this get you breathless, kindly subscribe to Betrayal and Infidelity Exposed for our daily stories. December 2nd, 1998. Around 9 a.m. Everything had been meticulously planned. Her mother had spent months coordinating every detail, from the subtle lavender-scented candles in the pews to the silver-trimmed linen napkins at the reception. Her best friend, Tessa, had burst into tears that morning when she saw Clara in her gown. Even the morning sky seemed to promise perfection, painted in soft blues and peach streaks. The sun filtered through the antique stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the polished marble floor. Everything was perfect. The silk bows on the pews, the string quartet humming through Pachelbel's Canon in D, the delicate scent of roses and lavender that floated through the air like an invisible hymn. Clara Mayfield stood before the floor-length mirror in the bridal chamber, her fingers trembling around a bouquet of lilies. The gown, vintage lace from her late grandmother's wardrobe, hugged her with an air of elegance and legacy. Her hair, swept up into soft curls pinned with pearl combs, shone in the morning light. Her heart beat wildly, not out of fear, but out of love, or so she thought. Outside the door, her bridesmaids fluttered like butterflies, whispering and giggling about how dashing Julian Bexley looked in his tuxedo. Julian, the man who had waited patiently for 3 years, the man who had nursed her broken heart, who asked no questions about the past, who loved her with calm steadiness. With Julian, Clara had felt safe, grounded. She had often wondered whether she truly loved him or had simply chosen him because life with him was predictable and kind. Then the door creaked open. "Clara?" a voice whispered. A voice she hadn't heard in over 4 years, one that had once been her entire world. Her fingers tightened on the bouquet, the stems digging into her skin. Couldn't be. She turned around slowly, heart thunderous. Standing at the threshold was Elias Thorne. His presence filled the room like a ghost's chill. He wore a charcoal black suit, no boutonniere, no smile, just those familiar gray eyes, haunted and wild. The same eyes she had once adored and then learned to fear. She had buried the memories, buried him, but there he stood, resurrected like a curse. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice low but sharp. "I told you," Elias said, stepping inside and locking the door behind him. "I told you I'd never let anyone else have you." Clara stumbled back. "That was 4 years ago. You disappeared. You left. I moved on." Elias's eyes flicked to the mirror, to her dress, to the flowers. "No, you waited. And I'm here now." Before she could scream, he crossed the room with startling speed and pressed something cold and metallic against her waist. It was small, a concealed pistol. The color drained from her face. She couldn't breathe. "Smile," he whispered. "It's your wedding day." Within seconds, he had her out of the chamber through the servants' exit. The corridor was empty, lined with forgotten paintings and dusty candle holders. She wanted to resist, scream, tear away her veil, but she remembered Elias's rage, his unpredictability, the way he used to punish her with silence, and sometimes with bruises. Outside, the summer air wrapped around them like a cloak. He shoved her into the back seat of a black sedan parked behind the chapel, its windows tinted, the driver unknown. The moment the door shut, the car peeled away from the gravel lot like a bat out of hell. Behind them, inside the chapel, the music changed. The guests stood. Julian looked toward the entrance, waiting for a bride who would never arrive. Clara sat frozen. Her bouquet lay crushed beside her. She turned to Elias. "Why now?" His jaw clenched. "Because I told you I'd come back. And you didn't believe me. You tried to erase me." "I didn't try. I had to." Her voice cracked, the panic rising. "You were dangerous. You were controlling. You hurt me." He looked out the window. "You hurt me, Clara. You gave up on us. But now you're going to understand what real commitment means. The car drove for hours. She had no idea where they were headed. The Vermont forests grew thicker, the roads narrower. Eventually, they reached an abandoned lodge by the edge of a lake, cloaked in mist and isolation. He dragged her inside, bolting the door behind them. The walls were bare. The air smelled of mildew and regret. A fireplace sat dead in the corner. Elias turned to her, now devoid of the ceremony, the charm, the illusion of choice. You're not going back to him, ever. She stared at him, her gown torn at the hem, her body trembling. You're insane. No, he replied quietly. I'm in love. Days passed. Clara lost all sense of time. Her phone was gone. The windows were locked. Elias rationed food and kept the radio low. Sometimes he would sit across the room, watching her silently like she might vanish. Other times he would ramble about how everything had gone wrong, about how the world had turned against him, about how only she had ever loved him right. She tried to escape twice. The first time, he found her trying to pry open a floorboard. He struck her wrist hard enough to fracture it. The second time, she reached the front door but was dragged back inside by her hair. Her silence became her armor. She learned to nod, to smile faintly, to play along. And eventually, her patience earned her one blessed moment of opportunity. When Elias forgot to lock the bathroom window one foggy morning, Clara squeezed through it and ran barefoot into the woods. She ran until her legs gave out. Her dress snagged on brambles. Her lungs burned. By some miracle, she stumbled upon a ranger's cabin miles down the slope. Help arrived in hours. Elias was found 2 days later, attempting to flee the state. Authorities tracked him to a gas station just outside of Albany, New York, after he used Clara's stolen credit card to purchase fuel and supplies. Surveillance footage and credit card activity had created a trail too obvious to ignore. When the SWAT team cornered him, he tried to talk his way out, insisting Clara had gone with him willingly. But Clara's injuries, her broken wrist, the bruises on her arms and legs, the blood-stained scraps of her wedding dress, they told a different story. Elias was arrested on the spot, cuffed and shoved into the back of a police vehicle. His calm facade cracked at last, his screams echoing down the highway, promising revenge that would never come. Clara sat at the back of the courtroom, her cast now replaced by a walking boot, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The courthouse was heavy with the weight of truth and consequence. Beside her sat Julian, calm but alert, his presence grounding. The judge read the verdict slowly. On the charges of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and aggravated assault, the defendant, Elias Thorne, is hereby sentenced to 35 years to life in federal prison. A murmur ran through the gallery. Elias stood shackled, his jaw twitching, his face unreadable. But then his eyes found hers. That familiar stare, the one that once made her feel seen, now made her skin crawl. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but no sound came. Only silence passed between them, one last haunting echo. Clara held his gaze, not with fear, but with finality. As they led him away, she felt her heart race. Not with panic, but with closure. She leaned into Julian's shoulder, letting herself breathe fully for the first time in months. The scent of salt and blooming jasmine filled Clara's flower shop. The little store, tucked between a cafe and a bookshop, was painted in cheerful pastel hues. Vases of lilies, sunflowers, and forget-me-nots adorned the shelves. Clara arranged a bouquet with careful fingers, humming softly to herself. The doorbell chimed. She looked up. Julian. He stood in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee and a crooked smile. Time had softened the edges of their pain, but not the bond between them. Thought I'd surprise you, he said. She smiled. You always do. He stepped inside. How's business? Steady. The town's kind. Peaceful. They didn't speak about the past, not today. Instead, he helped her water the orchids, and they shared lunch on the bench outside, the sea breeze combing through their hair. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara placed a fresh lily in the window, a symbol of renewal. of survival, of beauty despite brokenness. She didn't flinch at shadows anymore. She didn't wake screaming. She was rebuilding, not just a shop, but herself. And as Julian reached for her hand, tentative, gentle, she let him, slowly, carefully, because she wasn't running anymore. She was living. If this story got you breathless and entertained, kindly like this video and hit the subscribe button to subscribe to Betrayal and Infidelity Exposed channel for more stories.